Everybody, this is Jeremy Martin from cinco.medicos, and in this video I wanted to talk a little bit about forgiveness and how it plays a role in our healing, um, especially with regards to plant medicine, but just also in general. So I wanted to start off with a little bit of a personal story. A couple years ago, I was in the jungle doing a plant dieta. It was about 2 a.m. after our 15th ayahuasca ceremony, and I was already coming down from the medicine when one of the facilitators I was chatting with, she said that she had received a message from the tree I was dieting, and she received this message during ceremony. And she said to me that the tree said, "Forgive yourself, love yourself, free yourself so that you can be who you are." And now, on the surface, this may sound fairly obvious, and uh, like a lot of spiritual platitudes that we tend to hear, but the message, the way it was said, who it came from, and my readiness to receive it at the time, all of that cascaded together and triggered something so deep inside me that I just started bawling, and I even started tremoring, such that I started to also hyperventilate. The energetic release was incredibly powerful because first I knew that, and I just knew I had to get that sadness out of me, the sadness of not being able to forgive, of not being able to liberate myself. I had lived in Mexico and Uruguay and moved to San Francisco and met all these people and had all these jobs and gone on all sorts of escapades to try and free myself. And it was all more than a deep, deep cry for help. It was certainly that, but also a subconscious program that I had been running to run away from my own inability to look within and to forgive myself. And so as a result, I'd been holding so much pain for so long that it was not just a mental and emotional block anymore, but even a physical burden to the point where I had become disabled and couldn't even walk. But that's another story. The reason I tell this anecdote is first to be vulnerable and share a part of my story, and to also speak about the power of forgiveness in healing and how plant medicine can facilitate forgiveness as a means to healing. So, I want to talk about what forgiveness is and why I think it's so important. So, to start, forgiveness is only something that I believe we ourselves can do for ourselves. We think that forgiving is something that we do to and for other people. But this I've come to realize is a big misperception and a big block in a lot of people's healing. Because not only is forgiveness always your responsibility, it's something that you need to do reflectively. We we believe we need to forgive other people, but because we believe that, we're still making their errors more real. And we're perpetuating the idea of their imperfection. We're categorizing them as the villain and us as the victim, which not only makes them more powerful, but us more powerless. And so we're really just believing in the same illusions that they believe in, which is like trying to solve a problem with the same level of thinking that created it. And so forgiving other people is still looking outside rather than looking inside where the real work happens, because that's where all of our perceptions come from. So by forgiving other people, we may think we're doing something morally right and trying to resolve some root trauma, and I want to make it right with this person. I want to make it right with this other, my parents or my girlfriend or boyfriend or whoever. But if we believe this, then we're acting first morally superior. We're believing that they've done something wrong, that they've done something wrong that deserves our absolution, and we're judging them. We're seeing them as guilty, and really that's it. By seeing them as guilty, they feel guilty, and rather than someone who is also in need of healing and who simply acted according to their level of consciousness at the time. So forgiving other people is more, to me, an egoic act because it separates. And and I don't mean that on an airy fairy sort of level. I mean it's us who got hurt, and it's they who hurt us. It's subject object, and only the ego can get hurt, because we're saying, well, they did that to me, and well, who is me? Me is the ego, and the ego mind looks out to the world and sees separate bodies. It sees a world of danger and of fear, and so other people become obstacles and threats. And if somebody attacks a self-image I have of who I am, that's an attack on me, on my ego, because I am my self-images, right? I am my identifications. And so if someone betrays me, if somebody abandons me, if somebody abuses me, if somebody hurts me, whatever, the ego believes some of my value has been stolen from me, some of my property has been damaged, some of me, my essence has been fractured. And within that thought system, uh, you can't really get out of that idea from within the thought system, which is why we start to identify with our traumas and believe that that is who we are. We become someone who was and still is traumatized. And so we still have not healed anything. We remain a traumatized person because our ego is attaching itself to that identity. And again, this is not just abstract. You can become a depressed person, as I did. You can become someone who suffers from chronic pain, as I did. And you just cling to these identities. And so you're not only just clinging to the hurt, you're clinging to the identity and the downstream effect of the hurt, which means there's really no other person I can forgive other than myself, because no one's ever done anything to me. They've only done it to my ego. Once the ego is gone, there's really no longer any person there to hurt or to hold a grudge. And that's not to say that we did not experience pain or a sense of loss. This is not to invalidate the experience we had. Not at all. I'm not trying to say that whatsoever. All of that is very real. But we need to realize to whom and to what did those abuses or did that harm occur. And so forgiveness then is at its core self-forgiveness. All of it is self-forgiveness. We can only forgive our own misperceptions about who we think we are. And so in my own process, that was doing away with the identity of being someone who was depressed, someone who was addicted to alcohol, someone who suffered from chronic pain. Doing away with the identity of being a victim, of feeling like I was the hurt one. They hurt me. And it wasn't to invalidate the fact that I felt hurt. I did. But I didn't have to keep feeling hurt. I felt hurt, but now, if I have healed perception, there's nothing in my environment right here, right now, that is hurting me. It's all in my mind. And so this can be a big leap in consciousness for people, and it can be a little bit triggering to hear. And I understand that, and I understand why as well. But I will say that it's a big leap in freedom, because there's no way you'll ever experience freedom if you're looking for people to blame. If you're always pointing the finger to say, he did this or they did that, she left me, they took that, if they didn't say this, whatever, whatever story that the ego is holding on to, whatever construct it is, because without those constructs and stories, well, then that all of that house of cards would just cease to exist. It would fall. And so the problem with holding on to these stories is that we can never really heal the past because we're so in love with it. We can't move on to a healthy future and be fully present, here and now, because we're so in love with suffering from what was done to us. And therefore, how can we ever liberate ourselves truly? We're still living in a prison to our ideas about other people. We're in the prison of our ego, and we're living in the illusion of our own misperceptions about what reality actually is. And all of this sounds rather inconsequential in a way, but it's First of all, totally not, because first of all, we're in pain. Second of all, we're projecting that pain onto other people. And third of all, it really keeps us from stepping into our own power to doing what we want to do, being who we want to be. And it keeps us away from just feeling peace and joy, which I think we all can agree on. We all want the same thing. We all want happiness. We all want peace and joy. And so, again, I know this can sound a little hurtful for some people to hear, which is why I began this video with my personal story, talking about how much trouble I had forgiving myself and liberating myself. And so I say this because I understand firsthand how it works, why it works this way, and I've also helped a lot of other people in their own process as well with forgiveness. And still, it can be very confusing and triggering when we consider things like all the horrible things that happen in the world, stuff done to little kids and sexual assault and all manner of psychological abuse. And again, none of what I'm saying is to minimize the very real pain that we felt and may still feel. What you feel is real, and trust that, honor that. But if we wish to heal what we feel is real, we must deal with it in a new way rather than the old way of going outside of ourselves uh, and seeing the world as wrong. When in reality, we need to take ownership of the world that we're creating for ourselves. We are creating our experience here and now, and only we can awaken from that dream that we're in. Or if we prefer to stay asleep in a nightmare, well, that's our choice. But what forgiveness does is it sets us free from that nightmare so that, again, we can enjoy the dream more consciously. We become more like a lucid dreamer. By being more conscious, we first realize that we're in a dream. Oh, I'm dreaming. Then we become aware that we're living in a world of our own illusions. Oh, this is a dream that I've created. And as a natural byproduct of this first realization, we then realize that we're not even the character in the dream, right? That's the ego, and actually we aren't even the body. That's this is a big bold claim to make, but the body is really the ego's religion. It's its opium den, because whatever happens to the body happens to the ego. We think we are the body, but that's really not true. And I won't get into this too much, but are you the same body you were yesterday, that you'll be tomorrow, that you were when you were a baby, that are when you're going to be old? No, we're not the body. The body's always changing. It's a vessel. But getting back to forgiveness, by forgiving ourselves, by seeing our own misperceptions for what they really are, we can liberate ourselves and just enjoy the dream. We can see the world as beautiful. Whatever happens in it is rather inconsequential because we can't be hurt or damaged within the dream. And within this newfound perspective, we awaken to our true nature, which is far beyond the body, far beyond the ego, and we can really love life for the dream that it is. And it can either be heaven or it can be hell. And this is what it means to say that all forgiveness is self-forgiveness, because if I believe someone else has done something to me, I'm still not recognizing that whatever happened to me was according to the way conditioning played out on the level of consciousness of that person and myself. And I'm still seeing the person as separate, as other, and them, me. Um, and yes, you may feel hurt, but the problem now is that the hurt is still in your mind about how you think and feel about your hurt. Yes, you were hurt then, but you're still feeling hurt now about something that's not happening. And so we walk around with our own concepts and definitions and labels and projections of other people and who you think they are, namely a threat. And so you still feel hurt or attacked, but again, you're not being hurt or attacked. That's all in your mind. And not to mention that they were lost in a dream world when that happened, but so are you now, because you're still suffering for imaginary reasons. Quite literally, things that are not happening anymore are still playing out in your mind as if they are. And if that's not the definition of insanity, I don't know what is. And again, I'm not trying to make people feel crazy. I'm just saying that trauma can be crazy making. I know what it's like to be in that insanity. I myself had chronic pain and depression and addiction, so I understand what it's like. on that side of the river. And now that I'm on this side, I'm saying that for true healing to take place, forgiveness is necessary, which requires me forgiving myself for binding myself to that illusion of having a false perception of what really is. And so that by doing that, we can feel safe and joyful again. And there are many ways to do this. We can have daily practices, we can have spiritual practices. Plant medicine, I believe, is a beautiful, wonderful catalyst done in a safe, supportive setting with good guidance, preparation, and integration, um, done in the right way. But it's not necessary. You can forgive yourself independent of plant medicine. Um, but plant medicine can really save you a lot of time, and a lot of heartache and a lot of ways of going down a path that might not be productive. Um, and so anyway, in this way, forgiveness really helps to purify our mind. It's purifying the mind of false beliefs, because we have fears about the way we think life is, and then we realize that those fears are not true. And when we do away with those fears, as the law of attraction states, we're no longer magnetizing whatever it is we're thinking about and believing in that's not real. So I'll use another personal story. During my childhood, I played the role of the parent, the parentified child, and became a people pleaser in my adult life. This happens to millions of people. It's really common in codependency. So I'm sure some of you can relate. But by forgiving myself for that limited understanding of why I did those things as a kid, and why my parents did what they did, why they behaved and thought as they did, and forgiving myself for acting out subconscious programs later in life, which caused me to be a people pleaser or make the decisions that I did, only then could I shut down my own mind's false beliefs of seeing my parents as bad, right, or guilty, and then I could start opening my heart to seeing their true goodness and my own as well. And so what happens is so healing, because it returns us to our own peace and our own true innocence, as we were when we were born, as a baby, as a kid. We're innocent. We're not guilty. And so when we realize we're innocent, we stop labeling other people as guilty. And so this is not just liberating for us, but it's liberating for other people too. Because if I see my parents as guilty, well, then that's what I make them. I make them into guilty people who need punishment, rather than seeing them as good people who are truly worthy, just as I am, of love and healing and peace and joy and all that good stuff. And once I got to this stage in my own forgiveness journey, I no longer vibrated at the level of attracting certain things that weren't in my highest interest. I started caring for myself in radically new ways that was just totally 100% different from the old me. I wasn't attached to all the stories and toxic judgments of the mind, which only made me feel broken and not good enough and all that drama that the mind loves to create through constant projections. No, instead, I began to see, and I now see other people as free too. And that's the gift that I give to other people. That's my medicine. And through my self-forgiveness, that's how I perceive the world. That's the world I walk in. And it takes a lot of courage. It takes a lot of determination to put these stories to bed. As I saw someone else talk about, quit singing the "Someone Done Me Wrong" song. It takes a lot of power to take responsibility and to do the forgiveness work and be transformed. And it's not spiritual woo-woo stuff. It's real. Um, and let me ask you this: how is all the blame and shame and judgment and condemnation of other people going for us? And not just how's it going for you? How's it going for them? How's it going for the world? And is this not why we continue inflicting pain on each other and bringing chaos into each other's lives, and war and greed? And is this not why the cycle keeps going? So that's the real beauty and power of forgiveness if you're willing to do the work. If you are, this kind of forgiveness will again lead you to true peace, to true love, and real understanding. Your relationships begin to improve. You don't have to try to improve your relationships, they just improve. You don't have to try to do away with your addictions, they just fall away. You'll avoid situations that don't serve you because you've learned your lesson not to subject yourself to another person's insanity anymore, or be around a toxic crowd. You can just move on to doing bigger and better things. And there's a huge, huge paradox in this, you know, because by seeing the good in ourselves and by seeing the good in everyone, the paradox is that we realize there was really nothing to forgive in the first place. That's like the real spiritual zinger. We become free from whatever was holding us prisoner, which was ourselves, and the parts of us which keep us uh, returning to hurtful or harmful situations and that cycle of suffering or samsara or illusion. And we see that that's the problem. It's not the other person. The parts of us that we believe were unworthy or deserved harm are just healed. And we stop creating our own nightmares because we realize it's not true. And this is, all the drama, all the play that we've created. And so there's nothing to forgive. And that's why I think forgiveness is so amazing. It's psychedelic within itself. And while plant medicine, again, can be a major catalyst to getting us there, I will say that, again, it's by no means necessary. Forgiveness has transformed my life thanks to plant medicine, but also independent of it as well. So, before this video gets too long, I want to thank you all for watching. I want you to forgive yourself. And if you want to get in touch with me, email cinco.medicos at protonmail.com or visit my website at cinco.medicos.com. All right, take care.